name is Luke, and I'm your atheist pastor, and welcome to church. This is a church without any dogmas, deities, or damnation. We are a place for secular people to go to find love, belonging, and connection. And who is we, you ask? Well, myself and producer Tammy.
I'm here.
She is here. Great show coming up for you today. So first of all, we have Caila Lane is going to be joining us in a little bit. She is going to be doing a new segment on the show. It's going to be monthly. I cannot wait for it, but I'm not going to tell you anything about it yet. I'm going to wait until she gets here to tell you all about it. And then our featured atheist for today is Amanda. Amanda has got an absolutely phenomenal story. Dealing with cancer, ex-husband, getting sober, cutting people out of her life that don't add value to it. I mean, it's just an incredible, incredible story. And she actually inspired me her story is really kind of the inspiration behind something new that we're doing on Patreon, which I'll tell you a little bit about that coming up. But before we get into any of all that, amazing news out of New Jersey. Guess what New Jersey did this week?
I don't know.
New Jersey became the second state in the union to outlaw child marriage.
Oh,
yes. So for those of you that don't know, it is very legal in the United States for children to get married. Now, so what do you mean by children? 10 years old. There are reports of kids as young as 10 in states like Tennessee getting married based on their parents' permission or a judge's approval. It's legal in the United States to do that. Now, you have to be 18 to enter into marriage on your own, but if your parents allow you to get married, or if a judge says it's okay for you to get married, then you can get married as young as like 13 or 14 years old. However, New Jersey decided that that's not okay. So last Friday, they decided that it was no longer okay to allow child marriages. Now, Delaware was the first state to completely ban child marriage, and they did that in May. So according to Reuters, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy signed the measure into law in Trenton, the state capital, calling it an important human rights issue. Previously, children in New Jersey as young as 16 could marry with parental consent, and those under 16 could marry with the approval of a judge. So all it takes for a 15-year-old to get married is the approval of a judge. That's it. Governor Murphy announced the legislation via Twitter because that is how we make political announcements these days. And so what he said was, no child should be forced or coerced into marriage. Today, he, the governor, signed legislation making New Jersey the second state in the nation to ban child marriage. New Jersey will be a national leader in protecting the welfare of children. #end child marriage.
So there's only 2 states now doing this.
There are 2 states in the United States of America where it is completely illegal for children to get married.
So now you have to be 18 or over?
You have to be 18 or over to get married.
Very good.
Commenting on the new law, Assemblywoman Nancy Munoz was one of the original sponsors of the bill, and she said that marriage is a loving bond between 2 people. Forcing young girls into arranged marriages is harmful and a violation of their basic human rights. So basically, what has been happening here, and if you look at the statistics of child marriage, most children who get married are young girls. That we're not talking generally about 10-year-old or 13-year-old boys getting married. We're talking about young girls getting married, because most religions that do this shit are ones that marry off their children as young as possible, because virginity and purity is something that is prized highly. In fact, it's prized so highly that if they're young and a virgin, you might get some money for your daughter. So it's absolutely ridiculous. Now, there was a bill that came in front of Governor Chris Christie asking for the same things. But Christie vetoed the bill, saying, I agree that protecting the well-being, dignity, and freedom of minors is vital, but the severe bar this bill creates is not necessary to address the concerns voiced by the bill's proponents and does not comport with the sensibilities and, in some cases, the religious customs of the people of this state. Now, let me ask you this, Tammy. If I wanted to marry 4 women because it was my religious custom, is that legal?
No.
If I wanted to marry my dog, is that legal?
No.
Now, they use the slippery slope argument for gay marriage, right? It's a slippery slope. If you start to let gays getting married, then people can marry their dogs, and people can marry their cats, and people can marry their dad and their brother and their sister and whoever they want to marry. But yet, that's all bad. But when it's the religious custom of someone marrying someone under 18, all of a sudden that's okay?
That's absolutely not okay.
I don't understand that. Now, Governor Christie is not alone in opposing a ban on child marriage because of, quote, religious customs. Earlier this year, Republican-controlled state legislatures in Tennessee and Kentucky killed bills that would ban child marriage. By the way, for those of you that are like, fuck the liberals, let me tell you what other state has failed to pass a child marriage ban. California. It has come up in our assembly a few times, it has come up in the Senate a few times, and it has been killed for the very same reasons that these Republican-controlled houses of Congress are. It's the same reasons. Religious customs. So before you climb on top of your high horse and get atop your ivory tower and start looking over everything, you have to understand that even the most liberal states, there are 2 states out of 50 that outlaw this crap. And everybody else is like, meh, I guess if it's all right, why not? According to, because this is from our friend Michael Stone at, I say he's our friend. He's not our friend. He has no idea who we are. This is from our friend Michael Stone at Atheist. He likes to end everything with a bottom line. Bottom line, despite objection from religious conservatives, New Jersey becomes the second state in the union to issue a complete ban on child marriage. And there are certain things in life that seem to just look simple. Like there are certain things in life where I just feel like it's an easy call, right? Like don't kill somebody.
Right.
Like that's generally an easy call. You know, I'm not going to kill someone because I don't want to go to jail. And maybe it's bad. You know, bad, but I don't want to go to jail. But what I don't understand is why this is such an issue. Like what world do you have to live in where you go, you know what, it might be a good idea to let a 13-year-old get married. I got married at 22. I was a fucking idiot. Absolute idiot. I didn't know what I was doing at 22. Imagine, and this is, John and I did a show back when we were doing the Gospel of John where we interviewed a child bride. And we've talked about this on the show before. We talked about this when Delaware passed this. So this, for those of you that, you know, oh, he's talking about this before. Yeah, I harp on this just like I harp on taxes. And next week we have a great story to talk about when it comes to taxes, but we don't have time to get into it this week. But there's actually, churches kind of have to pay taxes thanks to Trump. Now it's not the same as paying income tax and things like that, but there are some things in the church that are going to be taxed because of the Republican tax bill.
Interesting.
So it ain't all bad. We might give some high praise to the Trump administration next week.
I just can't, going back to the child marriage thing. Like, I mean, it is. It's like I don't care if it's your religious custom. Like, it's a child. Like we don't let children do certain things. Like, I bet you those same parents wouldn't let their kids go buy cigarettes with a court order.
Right. Or like see, here's the thing. You have the freedom of religion, but you don't have the freedom to break the law for your religion. So your religious custom could be chopping off people's heads. But even if that's your religious custom, you can't do it because it's illegal. And
I think there are some religions that actually incorporate chopping off heads.
Your religious custom could be polygamy, but you can't do it because it's illegal. In fact, if your religious custom includes certain usage of drugs, you can get kicked out of the military for that, even if it's your religious custom, because the military has a zero tolerance policy for drugs. So your religious customs do not supersede the law. And especially these Republicans are all about their law and order, right? We're having this huge debate about immigration because it's law and order. We have laws on the books. You can't do things illegal. Yet they have an issue with making this illegal because of religious custom. I just don't understand.
I don't either.
I don't understand. Like, okay, next time you're out and about at the store, I want you to look around. Don't be creepy with this. I want you to look around and look for a young girl. And then ask yourself, is it okay for her to get married? I think about your niece. You know, Tammy has a 10 or 11-year-old niece.
11-year-old, yeah.
And she could theoretically be given away by her parents to get married as long as a judge signed off on it. That is bullshit.
Yep.
And it's bullshit and it's legal.
It's almost like legalizing child rape.
Well,
because if it's a religious custom, the assumption is that the child's going to be given to a man so he can take her virginity, but it's all for religion, so that makes it okay.
Not only that, but if let's say a 20-year-old is dating a 15-year-old and they have sex and she gets pregnant, if they don't get married, it's statutory rape.
Yeah.
If the parents agree to let them get married, it's not.
Right.
And that's a load of horseshit.
It is.
An absolute lord an absolute lord of horseshit. And I hate it. We're going to be right back with Caila Lane to talk about her new segment, Caila's Corner. Actually, it has a better name than that, but I'm going to let her tell you about it when we come back.
Hi, this is producer Tammy. If this show has had an impact on your life, please consider supporting it financially. You can go to youratheistpastor.org or visit our Patreon page at patreon.com. Search for Your Atheist Pastor. You'll have access to past audio from our live Q&As, our monthly Patreon-only show, and even an invite to our super secret Skype calls. You'll also have access to our eternal gratitude, and who doesn't want that? Thank you for your support.
Joining me right now is Caila Lane. You may remember her from our featured atheist, this was before featured atheist. This was like during when it was called I Saw the Light when we called it that.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. One of our former I Saw the Light guests and our first. She's going to be our very first recurring guest contributor. Yeah. So Caila, welcome back.
Hey, it's good to be back. It's good to hear from you.
So I am excited about this because you wrote a blog post a while back, and it was actually like people actually read it. That was kind of cool. I don't know if anybody like reached out to you or not, but I actually saw analytics where like people actually went and read it. So that was that was neat.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And in today's world of clicking on things and reading things, most people never respond to stuff. They just are like, "Oh, cool, I read that. Well, bye."
I'm like, I skimmed that.
yeah. I skimmed that, and it was great.
I felt it here.
But one of the things so you're going to be doing a recurring segment that we were going to call Caila's Corner, but that sounded cheesy and terrible. So you came up with a different name, which I like a lot better, and it's because you came up with it. And so what is the name of this new segment that you're going to do for us?
Yeah, so the segment that I'd like to share with you, we're going to call it Take a Knee. And this name might conjure up feelings in some people. And that's what I want. I wanted an iconic name that people would understand and get off the point, like right off the top.
So for people that maybe haven't gone back and listened to your episode, and for people that don't know anything about you and who you are, Take a Knee, I would assume that's in connection to taking a knee during the national anthem for the NFL games and all of those kinds of things. So give everybody just a quick recap of your background.
Yeah, definitely. So I was born to a 17-year-old white mother, and my father is Black or African American, and I was adopted when I was 3 weeks old, and I was raised by two loving white parents in like southern state of Tennessee. And yeah, so I grew up there outside of Nashville and Franklin. And what Take a Knee means to me, proceed to the next question, What take a knee means to me is it's about social and racial equality. Obviously, Colin Kaepernick started it because of police brutality, particularly towards minorities and black men, black women. And that was to raise awareness. It was a nonviolent protest. He had every right to do. And that's where the take a knee obviously came to mind, because this is going to be a corner for people of color. This is going to be creating space and sharing the spotlight with our brothers and sisters.
So for the one or two potentially offended white people who might think, oh my gosh, what is happening to the show that I love? I don't think anybody's really thinking that at all. I really don't think.
Better not be.
I really
fix yourself if you are.
I really don't think anyone's thinking that at all. But what is so? What can a person who is not of color? So like, let's take me for example. I am probably the
adorably white.
I probably embody the definition of white privilege in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm a 33-year-old white man who still has all of my hair. And so, I've got, and I've got a name like Luke King, which you can't really get any whiter than that. It's two syllables, Luke King. They kind of run together. If you say them too fast, it sounds like looking. And so what could someone like me, how can this segment benefit me? What am I going to learn from this? I mean, where is, does that make sense?
That's an excellent question.
I'm deep into this IPA, so that's
get it. No, that's an excellent question, and we need to have this conversation, and I'm willing to address the other side. This isn't about a side thing. Like I said, it's about making space for people that are underrepresented and misunderstood, I would say, in a lot of ways in our culture. I would think a lot of people would agree our culture is predominantly white. And not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just, it's time to make room and be representative. You know what I mean? And like, making room for others doesn't mean you're losing your space. It just means you're sharing it,
Yeah, I think that's great. I remember when I was in seminary, we were talking about the role of women in the church and how women were starting to play more of a predominant role in the church. They were moving into leadership. And one of the people said in that situation that for those who are in power, equality feels like oppression, because all of a sudden you have voices that you never heard before. And I remember the very first time I first time I heard about the talk from an African American friend of mine, because to me the talk was always about sex. But to him, the talk was what happens when four black guys are driving around in a car in a white neighborhood and they get pulled over by the police. And it's basically how not to die. And
it's real.
And I remember that moment, and I wasn't sitting there like, oh, that doesn't happen. Like, you could see in his eyes that this was real. And I think one of the things that drives me insane, and I'm probably guilty of it at some point, but one of the things that drives me insane in these conversations is someone says, talks about a racist scenario, or talks about racism that they would encounter, and the typical response is, oh, well, that's not me. I'm not a racist. It's like, well, no one's telling you that you are, dude. And if you feel like you have to justify yourself, then maybe
come clean.
Maybe. I mean, I will readily admit to having, I notice the buried deep down implicit racial bias that is in me, and I hate it. I hate that it's there.
It's there in all of us, though, in different ways.
I wonder, just to be real, like, I wonder sometimes if somebody's driving around in a car with big rims and loud music, and I look over and I see that it's a black guy driving it instead of a white guy. I think like how would I be processing this if it was a white guy instead of a black guy? Like what are my assumptions? What are the things I'm thinking? What are my of course it is. Well, what do you mean of course it is? Like what, you know what I mean? Like
many biases.
That shit is real. And I think that for me, one of the reasons I started doing the Featured Atheist segment, one of the reasons I want to bring you back on every month is because my voice can't bring an experience that it's never had. And if we want to learn about people's experiences, then we need to learn from people who experience those things, and we need to trust them. No one ever questions any of my featured atheists about their experience as a religious person. But how often do people question you about your experience as a woman with darker colored skin?
Yeah. Too many times.
Yeah, and that's just wrong.
Yeah. It is. And I'm glad, I'm really appreciative that you recognize that and are willing to have the conversation. Because a lot of people, I feel like, in positions of influence, which you are definitely, you have an audience that cares what you say. And that's an opportunity, to have all the conversations we should be having. And race is definitely one of them right now.
I really want to add a segment during your segment, called dumb white guy questions.
Yeah.
Where I can just ask. I can just ask dumb white guy questions.
Yes. Let's get all these answers out there so these questions can go away.
I think that would be so fun. But all right. So aside from dumb white guy questions, what are some other components of what are we going to learn during Take a Knee? I mean, what are we going to find out about? What are you excited about with it? Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah. So like I said, this is really just going to be a segment to create space for secular people of color. We're going to come together, learn a little bit of history, talk about current culture, what's going on in Black news, Black culture, and then we're going to take it around to reaching out and sharing our experiences, because that's one way that I believe that people can invest in a culture, is just listening to their stories and getting to know them and their reality. So hopefully by the end, to wrap up the segment, Take a Knee, we're going to ask the question, what makes you want to take a knee? And this is going to be the part where you can tell stories, big or small, trivial or just out of this world, about times when you felt or experienced an injustice, and how it made you feel, and what could be done to correct this injustice. What actions people can take. So So if there's anyone that's listening, hopefully a person of color, that if you have this experience, please call in, email us, and we can get a soundbite off you. And just tell us what makes you want to take a knee.
I love that.
Me too.
I am so excited about this. I'm number one. I'm just so excited to have someone else bring something else to this. I mean, I love having Tammy here has added to the show. The featured atheists have added to the show, and then to have an opportunity for people to get to know you in kind of way that I've gotten to know you, but then also that having that be deeper. I mean, you've been part of the community for a while, so I love that we're going to get your voice out there, and so we're going to set up. I'm going to set up some ways for people to reach out to you.
Yeah, please.
And so we'll get your email out there. So if people want to reach out to you right now, so let's say someone's listening and they're like, oh my gosh, I have to be part of this, and they can't wait until the end of the show. What are some ways that they can contact you?
Yeah, definitely. I can share my email with you, or my cell phone number if I need to. Text me, send me a voice message, whatever. Call me. We can talk, or you can shoot an email. Anything really, and we'll get you recorded.
Perfect, and we'll tag you in all the stuff. And so because you're like now you're part of the mic. You're part of the behind the mic team, Caila.
The power.
Yes, I love it. Caila Lane, I'm so excited about your first segment. Do we know when it's going to be? Are we aiming for the end of July? Is that what we're aiming for? Is that what we said? Okay, cool.
But of course, just July, mid-July to late July.
So sometime in July, we're going to take a knee with Caila Lane. I cannot wait. Caila, thank you so much. I can't wait for the first segment.
Thank you, Luke.
And we're going to be right back with this week's featured atheist, Amanda.
Hi, this is producer Tammy. If this show has had an impact on your life, please consider supporting it financially. You can go to youratheistpastor.org or visit our Patreon page at patreon.com. Search for Your Atheist Pastor. You'll have access to past audio from our live Q&As, our monthly Patreon-only show, and even an invite to our super secret Skype calls. You'll also have access to our eternal gratitude, and who doesn't want that? Thank you for your support.
My guest today is Amanda. She's our featured atheist for the week. She's 28 years old and discovered her lack of faith around 8 years old. She says much of her family is Christian, and she's been lucky enough to have that a majority have not attempted to push it too heavily. Mom was a believer, but never really went to church. And Dad is more of an agnostic, questioning everything and often poking fun at organized religion. Amanda, thank you so much for being willing to come on the show today.
Thank you.
So let's start with a little bit about, like, how long have you been an atheist, and where are you from? What part of the country do you hail from?
I am from Phoenix, Arizona, actually, where downtown, where I grew up, there's a lot of different religions. There's a lot going on. It's kind of a big melting pot. But when I was a teenager, we moved to the outskirts, which was founded by the Mormon community.
Oh.
So that was kind of a big shock.
Yeah. So what flavor of religion were you kind of a part of before you kind of realized that this might not be true?
Just Christianity, nothing extreme, just basic church. I would go with my aunt and uncle when I'd stay with them, and it just it got to be a lot when I got a little bit older, and I started wondering if this was really for me. And it stopped being, interesting when I would go. It just kind of got boring.
What were some of the messages that you heard when you were in church? Like, what was some of the overarching themes that just kind of made you go, I don't know about this?
It was a lot of, follow what Jesus said. God is there for you. But it just kind of seemed like garbled messages, and it just seemed recycled. Everything was the same. There was no substance to it. It was just like they were just reading from a book. Like, their heart wasn't in it. They didn't have anything on their own to say. They didn't know what to say other than reading from a book.
So did you think that God might be real, but these people just maybe didn't know him? Or was that, or did you start to question then the validity of the whole thing?
Actually, I started questioning, my mom had mental issues. And she was really young when she had me, so she was really young when this went on, and I was pretty young. So I saw a completely different side of humanity in the way people act when they have certain diagnoses, and how people kind of react, how somebody can just change completely. And it scared me, and it made me wonder if there was really someone out there that was controlling this. And if there was, then why would they do this to so many people? Why would they, scare children? Why would they make things so hard on a young woman? Why would they make things so hard on the spouse and everything?
What was the nature of the mental illness that your mom was dealing with?
It had been diagnosed as just as typical depression, but she was very angry and violent, so we think it was more of a bipolar issue. And it was hard on my dad. It was hard on the family. It was hard on everybody.
Was your mom, was God part of that anger or anything like that she...
No, I don't remember anybody talking about religion during that time. It was kind of like everybody seemed to abandon any sort of talk about it. It was almost like nobody wanted to bring that up as, maybe this is God's plan, this is God's will. Nobody mentioned it.
Really? So that was something that was that didn't enter into, because that's normally when people say God has a bigger plan or some bullshit like that.
Exactly. And everybody, nobody, even my mom didn't bring it up. And she was always kind of one that, God loves everybody. But I don't even remember my grandparents, who were super religious, bringing anything up. Everybody just kind of went with the flow and did what they could to help. But nobody talked about a higher power.
So is your mom still living? Is she still in the picture, or is... No,
she passed from cancer a few years ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, thank you.
What about so tell me a little bit about your kind of evolution, I guess, out of religion and into this idea of non-belief. I mean, what were the things that you thought about? What were the questions that you had, and how did you answer those?
Well, I kind of, like I said, I started wondering about then if there was really anything going on, and then still having to watch her struggle with it over, things got better, things kind of mellowed out. but she would still have episodes, and I would still wonder if, if there was really something out there controlling this, or if this was just human nature, if this was just embedded in our bodies. And as I got to about 7th grade, I met a girl who was an atheist, and we would talk about it. I'm like, okay, that makes more sense to me, that there's actually there's people like me that really don't believe that there's something out there controlling our every move, that it's just us.
What were some of the belief systems that she had, and what were some of those things that you guys talked about where you started to realize that you weren't the only one that felt this way?
Well, I kind of wasn't quite sure. I don't remember really knowing the term atheist, as it wasn't really brought up in my family, because I was the only one that was, I guess, to sound cliche, I was the only one that was different. Yeah. But she said she just didn't believe in God. And I was kind of like, you can do that? And
what a revelation.
That was kind of the end of it. And I told my mom, and she was really upset. She's like, you were a miracle baby, this, that, and the other thing. But then it was like, she had her peace. She understood that I wasn't going to change my mind. And that was the end of the conversation.
So she didn't
try to push me. She didn't, say I need to be saved. I didn't need to be anything. It was just, I told her how I felt. She was upset, and that was the end of it.
Now, was there anybody in your family that did try to push you into it, or was everyone fairly respectful?
When I was a teenager, we had some distant relatives come out, and they're super religious, and they had a problem because I had primarily gay friends.
Well, that's
they tried
obviously
to push
a problem.
It so hard,
yeah.
And she even told me one day, she's like, I'm going to embed this in your head the best I can. And I was tired of, the week or whatever they're out there, them just berating me with this. And I told her, go ahead, try. And my grandma was so upset that I talked back. And my mom's like, I gave her plenty of time. That she tried to be nice. They were not nice. We're not going to play this game. And one of them tried to leave me a Bible. He asked me if he left it, if I would read it, and I just told him no. And so they were upset. We saw them years later. We went back to Oklahoma to visit, and they were out there. They didn't try to push anything on me. They didn't bring it up. It was like all was forgotten.
You mentioned that your dad was kind of agnostic, and so tell me a little about your relationship with your dad and his kind of poking fun at religion. Did he ever go to church? Was he part of that whole thing? How did he?
He went when he was younger, I think, with family, but he didn't seem interested in it when we got older. I mean, he'd joke about God. He's like, well, that's why God invented this or that. But he always kind of said, well, if God invented the universe, who invented God? And that was something that stuck with me too as a child.
Yeah.
So I guess you could kind of say he helped shape my questioning of everything from a young age, because that was just how my dad was. And then as I got older, we made fun of religion and, just made little jokes and stupid things like that. But he never made me go to church. My parents never went to church, other than if we went with a different family member or something. But they never forced it.
Now, is your dad still around also? Or
yeah.
Okay, very cool. So how's your relationship with your dad now? I mean, you're obviously, are you, does everyone in the family kind of know you're an atheist, and that's been very kind of public, or is it more of a quieter thing?
No, everybody's pretty much known since I told my mom. Everybody kind of, they'll still say, well, I'm praying for you, or, because right now, probably a little too much information, but I'm going through a cancer treatment. And
oh my goodness.
Everybody's like, well, I'll pray for you. This is in God's hands now. And I know they mean well, but it's like, okay, this isn't new.
What's the nature of the cancer that you're dealing with?
Breast cancer.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. And so here's the interesting thing. You say that, and even though I've been out of the religious realm for like 5 years, like I still have that kind of initial reaction to be like, oh my God, I'll pray for you or something like that, only because it's just like, you feel, I feel hopeless, or not hopeless. I mean, I feel helpless in terms of like, I can't, it's like, oh my God, what can I do for you? And that seems like something that, people want to do when they feel like they can't do anything else.
It's a gut instinct. And I understand that. That's why I don't really get offended. I was actually talking to a friend of mine who lost her son when he was a teenager, and people would say, well, he's in a better place. And they would get upset because she would say, don't you think a better place would be here with his mother?
Right.
And that would just kind of shut them down. And I got a lot of the same remarks when my mom died. Well, she's in a better place. She's not suffering. It's like, well, couldn't she not suffer here and, be with her grandson?
Right. Right. So you have a son?
I do.
And how old is your son?
He will be 5 in July.
Oh, how fun. How fun. So tell me a little bit about how what happened kind of when you were in your earlier formative years, like 18, early 20s, looking at where you want to go in life, the direction you want to go in life. How did you make those decisions?
I had a lot of goals since I was young. I had wanted to work in the medical field, but unfortunately life happens and that doesn't always go the way you want. And, I tried multiple times at school because I was good in, high school and younger age, but I couldn't cut it in college. It never worked out for me. So I got lucky in my field now because I'm a pharmacy tech, but I don't really have any proper training. So I guess, people are like, well, it's, another thing, it's God's plan.
Right.
Well, it's not what I planned.
Right. So I'm really curious about, and you answer or don't answer, you're always more than welcome just to not answer anything I ask. How long ago were you diagnosed with breast cancer?
The first week of March.
Oh my gosh, so this is super recent.
Yeah.
Wow.
It all happened. Everything happened. I had my first chemo the middle of April, so everything moved really fast.
Wow. So, tell me about how you approach facing a battle with cancer as an atheist. Tell me how you approach that in terms of hope, in terms of, what keeps you going? How do you stay positive? Walk me through that a little bit.
Well, I've learned a lot in therapy, which I've been in therapy for a couple years. And, I have to learn coping skills. And there's no use in really getting upset because it's not going to change anything. There's no use in freaking out, screaming, cursing the universe, because at the end of the day, I still got the diagnosis. I still have to go through treatment. There's things that keep me going, like my ex-husband's girlfriend is never getting custody of my son, no matter how much they want that. She is never going to be his mom.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
But he's my main, point going forward, obviously, because I lost my mom when I was 24. Wow. So I know what it's like to lose a parent young. I can't imagine him losing a parent so young. And I mean, I just keep going because, I watched my mom go through it twice. So it's not that hard to stay positive, I guess. And people are like, I'm so sorry you're so young. And I tell them it's better me, somebody young that can fight it, than some older person that can't. And it's just going to, just take them down.
Yeah. So how is the prognosis for you as you look ahead?
They said it's either stage 2 or stage 3.
Okay.
They're not sure if it's in the lymph nodes or not because I haven't had a biopsy.
Okay.
So, but it's, from what I've read, it's the hormone positive, but I don't have the genes, so it's super easy and straightforward to treat.
Okay. So the news is like relatively good.
Yeah.
Okay. As good as news like this could be. I mean, it's not like you can't.
It's not good, but it's not.
It's not good.
It's not as worse as it could be.
Okay. So so are you kind of right now in the midst of this storm fighting this battle, and that's the only thing you're thinking about? Or are there other dreams and things that you think about as you go through this?
It's kind of scary right now because everything's put on hold because right after my first chemo, I was also diagnosed with valley fever. So they have to treat that before I can go back through chemo. So that's the only thing that's worrying me now. But as far as it goes, I mean, it's just a daily thing to keep going.
Yeah. What do you do for self-care? Like to keep your mind right and to keep your heart right and to kind of go through
I
this?
like to read a lot. I do a lot of music and, just surround myself with people that care about me. I've cut out so many people, including family members over the last few years that I feel so much better not having to deal with the toxicity of, people that think they're better, people that just aren't supportive.
And was that
because in the last 2 years, I've also gotten sober.
Oh, wow.
So people who, didn't understand, didn't care, didn't really want to be there. I just cut them out.
Oh my gosh, Amanda, you're just like this fucking rock star. Like, wow. So what was the sobriety process like? Did you do 12-step? I mean,
alcohol.
Okay. So did you do like AA or did you take a different path with that?
No, I started going to therapy.
Okay.
Because I had a diagnosis of bipolar 2 a few years before, and no, it never got treated. It was just kind of there. So once I started getting treatment and got medication figured out, started going through therapy, things just kind of fell into place and it got easier. And that's another thing is people are like, well, it's, God's helping you. No, God's not. It's medical professionals that are figuring these things out, that are working tirelessly with me, doing the best they can to try to get me to be well again.
Right. I was especially interested about the sobriety because, a lot of people get sober through the 12 steps and they admit that there's a higher power and, that they're powerless and things like that. And it doesn't sound like that's the approach that you've taken.
Well, I wasn't necessarily an alcoholic. I was a binge drinker.
Okay.
So when I drank, I drank way too much, blackout drunk, puking everywhere. But I wasn't one that I had to have it. I didn't drink every day. I didn't. So I think that actually made it easier on me because it wasn't, I'd gotten sober before for probably about 6 months, a couple years before that. So it wasn't a new concept. I just needed to stick with it.
Okay.
Which I have done.
Very cool. And for about 2 years.
Almost 2 years now.
Okay. Well, congratulations. That's so cool. So how do you raise your child tell me about your relationship with your ex-husband, his girlfriend, how you raised the child. You're an atheist. Are they religious at all? Does that come into play?
Well, his first wife was Mormon.
Oh.
So he kind of converted to the Mormonism when they were younger. I was best friends with his girlfriend now, and I don't remember her being religious, but I've noticed recently she's been wearing a cross necklace. So I don't know if that's changed. But even in our divorce decree, it says the child will not be raised in any specific religion.
Oh, how cool. You threw that in the divorce.
To the best of my knowledge, they haven't really introduced any of that to him. He hasn't come asking about God or Jesus or anything. He even mentioned to me because I sent my son over in a feminist t-shirt and it kind of made him upset because my son apparently doesn't know what that means and he doesn't need to be, dressed like that. And he told me, he said he doesn't send him over in religious t-shirts because he knows how I feel about religion. So, apparently they're not planning on raising him that way. And I do really appreciate that. I don't know if that's going to change when he gets older, but.
So there's not a whole lot of like tension there of like they're trying to save his soul and you're trying to be like, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. So it's not like a constant argument about, what's real and what's not. And I'm hoping they wait until he's old enough to kind of introduce that and let him make his own decisions, because right now he's just going to go with, whatever the parents say.
So with all the things that you have going on, do you have a community of people around you? I mean, do you have friends that are there to support you? What's your social structure like?
Yeah, I've always been kind of a loner. I got my best friend is one of the same friends I've had since I was about 16. So we've been friends. And my other person I'm really close to lives in a different state, but she, I've known her for a couple of years, and whenever I have any problem, I can go to either one of them. And then I've got a few family members I can kind of rely on, and they're really supportive, but I've noticed, certain people I haven't talked to too much now, all of a sudden they're concerned. And I know it sounds really harsh, but those people I don't really care to keep a relationship with, because they didn't care, when I was struggling with mental health or anything else. They didn't care about that. So, why should I let them in now? Because they feel guilty for not wanting to be a part of it. But I don't feel like I need those kind of people in my life.
Absolutely. No, I totally get that. As you look ahead to the future, what do you see for yourself? I mean, where do you see you and your son? Like, what are your dreams? What do you hope for? What are those things that you see in the future?
I just hope to make a better life for my son, so that way he knows, he obviously knows he's loved. He tells me all the time he wishes this is the house he could live at. So it's hard, but I want him to be able to see, that it doesn't always take two people to make a family. Your family is your heart, and no matter what, mom's going to be there. Mom's going to do her best. It may not be exactly what you're expecting, but mom's going to do everything she can to make things better, through, before I got diagnosed, I talked with my supervisor at work, and we're talking about cross training so I can do more things at work and hopefully move up and things like that. So the future wise, I mean, I'm in a good company. I'm in a really good job right now.
Good.
So I'm hoping to kind of move forward with that and hopefully make something better of myself at the company. And just show my son, through hard work and dedication, you can do anything you want.
When you talk to your son about, kind of what you're dealing with in terms of illness, and just kind of where your life is at, does he ask those why questions? Like, why is this happening? Are those questions that come up with him, or is it just kind of like, oh, I'm sick and, we're going to get through it?
Not really. The only thing he's really noticed is Mom is bald. So he wanted to touch my head, and he asked me, Mom, what if I had no hair? Silly things like that. That's the only real thing. And then I have, for the valley fever, I have, cause I have a port for chemo, and they have a little insertion in my arm so they can just plug it in every day. So he's kind of like, well, what is that? And I told him, it's for medicine to make me better. And he's like, oh, okay. Doesn't even care. When I told him that I was sick, he's like, oh, okay. Can I go play now? So, I mean, it doesn't really affect him. And my ex-husband kind of makes it like, this is going to affect him hugely. He's going to be, scarred for life. And this kid, he knows when I don't feel good, he kind of just leaves me be and goes and does something on his own.
Yeah.
So it's not like, it's not like he's really scared. I don't think he's quite old enough to grasp. The only time he's ever heard of cancer is when he asks what happened to my mom.
Okay.
Because, he was 6 months old when she passed. So he knows nothing of anything. But I mean, I don't think he's really old enough to understand the grasp of cancer. He knows that the medicine I take might make me sick to make me better. And he seems okay with that explanation. He doesn't ask a whole lot of questions. The only thing he asks is what takes so long in the mornings when I go get my infusions. He goes, why does it take so long? Things like that. Just typical 4-year-old questions. But
So,
it doesn't seem, he hasn't asked, huge questions yet.
yeah. Are you going in for treatments every day? What's the
For the valley fever? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I have to have infusions, and they're from about 7 to 11.
Okay.
So it's a long chunk of time for me to be gone.
That is a long time. So Amanda, we like to end these interviews with a little segment called "We Might Not Be Screwed After All," because there's a lot of reasons to be hopeless out there, but you have a lot of hope, still. And I'm curious, when you get up in the morning, why do you think we might not be screwed after all? Like, what keeps you going?
My son, and the fact that I have a lot of people to prove wrong, because everybody's expecting me to relapse. Everybody's expecting me, to just give up hope and just kind of stop what I'm doing. But, there's no reason to stop. I mean, I'm not really in terrible health for what's going on. I'm not an older person that, has lived my life and happy with, what I've gone through. I'm not even quite 30 yet. I need to keep going. And, I've got a lot to prove. I've got a lot still ahead of me. I'm not going to just roll over and give up. I've got a son to raise. So I just, I've got family. I've got, friends. There's no reason to stop.
I love it. That's amazing. Like that's beautiful. I love that you have so many people to prove wrong. And we just appreciate you, coming on and spending time with us and sharing your story and being so open and honest with it. Let's see. Are you in the Yappers group? I forget sometimes who I'm interviewing.
Yes, I am.
Okay, cool. So people can get in touch with you there, if they'd like to reach out and tell you that you're awesome and
oh, absolutely.
and-
I don't post a lot in there because I get confused with groups. I'm not the greatest with technology, as you can tell with this attempted Skype.
It's okay. We've done pretty well.
I'm always there to listen. I'm very much a listener. I'm always there to help people. I'm always there to talk about anything. But
Awesome.
I'm just really bad about making the first approach.
I understand, and we want to make sure that we support you in whatever way we can. I mean, we're a tiny little budding group, and so if there's ever any way that we can support you, please let us know. Please let us know, and we will do absolutely whatever we can to try to help make that.
I appreciate that.
It's
It's a very I love reading the different things in the group and just seeing different people's different perspectives and what led them to this I don't know other way to put it, epiphany in life.
Yeah. It's really.
But everybody's got their own story. Everybody's got their own reasons.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So, Amanda, thank you so much for being willing to take the time and sit down with me and tell me your story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed my chat with Amanda. I sure did. It was one of the... Every interview is great. I say it at the end of each one. I always talk about how great the interviews are, how great they're going to be, because every single one is great. But her story specifically, one of the things... probably my favorite moment when we were talking about, and when I was talking to her, was when I asked her, what keeps you going? How do you keep fighting this cancer in the midst, without faith? Because I think it's something really interesting to think about. Of how do you, I know how religious people battle health problems. They put their hope in the doctors, but they put their trust in they put their hope in the Lord, but their trust in the doctors. Ooh, I just came up with that. That was good. That was good. Hope in the Lord, trust in the doctors.
Good thing you recorded it.
Boom. But she doesn't have that. She just has her hope in the doctors. And when I asked her what keeps going, I loved her answer, which was, I don't want my ex-husband's girlfriend raising my child. And so that is what is keeping her going. And I think that's an incredibly valid thing to stay going. Now, I said at the beginning of the show that I was inspired by Amanda to do something on Patreon. One of the things that the church has going for it is that when one of their members is in dire straits, or when one of their members is ill or in need, the church has resources to help their members. Atheists, at least the ones that I've spoken to so far, are largely on their own, unless they have family that accept them and support them. Some of them do, some of them don't. I don't like that. I don't like that some of our people are on their own. And if I was a millionaire, I'd be able to take care of all of them, but I can't. I can't, create my own, Lucas King fund or whatever. Right, yet. One day, maybe. But I don't have the ability to help. And I don't like that. I don't like feeling helpless. And I think one of the things that I've really realized about not being able to say to someone, I'll pray for you, is the complete and utter helplessness of walking through illness with someone. Because unless you can say, I'll pray for you, you have nothing. Like, I had nothing to offer her other than being able to talk to her. And that's she didn't expect anything out of me, but I don't like that. I don't like not being able to help. I don't like not being able to offer something. So we used to give 15% of our Patreon earnings to the Clergy Project. And that was good because the Clergy Project does some good things. But I think that money is better spent on our people. So from now on, we are going to be saving up 15% of our Patreon money for the Patreon relief, or not the Patreon relief fund, the Your Atheist Pastor Relief Fund. And that relief fund is going to be used kind of at our discretion for people who need it. Now, I don't know of anybody who needs it yet. Amanda didn't express a need for anything, but as she was speaking, my thought was, what if she had a need and we could fill it? How amazing would that be? How awesome would that be to be in a situation where we can cut a check for, I don't know, $100 or $200? I also think about Robin, a lady who we interviewed a while back, whose husband is working through cancer as well, and all of the things that entails, and all that their backs and forths, and we can't afford to pay for a lot. But what if we could send them a $100 gift card to go out to dinner? What if we could do something like that? What if we could bestow some grace, some financial grace, or, I wanted to say bless, but bless is a religious word. We need, by the way, we need to do a contest. Come up with a fucking atheist word for bless, because it's the only word that works sometimes, and I hate that it works. But what if we could gift and give someone a gift of $50 or $100 or $75 just to it's not much, but it's something. So that's what we're going to do. From now on, all of our Patreon subscriptions, 15% of those are going to be put away for the Your Atheist Pastor Relief Fund, where when we find a need, we can meet it. There's also going to be a new option for you on our Give page. So Your Atheist Pastor /give. I think it's /give. It's either give or donate, but I think it's give. YourAtheistPastor.org /give. You will be able to just give to the Your Atheist Pastor Relief Fund. So if you don't want to give to the show, you don't want to make a donation to the show, but you want to say, I love that idea. I want to pool my money together with my like-minded atheist friends and give to the community, then you will have an option just to do that. We are going to be ridiculously transparent with this. Our Patreon subscription, the number is up on Patreon. We're like $180-something. So 15% of that. So that's like what, about $23, $24, $25. So that'll get us to about $46 in the Your Atheist Pastor Relief Fund. And I will give you an update every month on where we're at with that. And we will tell you where that money goes. We are not Kenneth and Gloria Copeland. We are not going to go buy a jet. We are going to support and love the people who support and love this show, because they are family. You are family. And we want to help you. And if you want to help the family, then you'll have an opportunity to do that. I'll put a link in the show notes of how you can do those things, because it's something that we really believe in. If you don't have money and you still want to support the show, here are a few ways to do it. Number one, tell somebody about it. That's amazing. Tell your friends if it's not outing yourself, because I understand some of you can't do that. So tell your friends, man, I'm listening to this great show, Your Atheist Pastor. The guy's a fucking stud. I love everything he says. Tell your friends about it. Here's another great thing you can do. It's so painless. And listen, I never do this to podcasts I listen to. So I've started to do it because I'm asking you to do it. It's so easy. Rate us on whatever you listen to. So if you're on iTunes, just give us 4 or 5 stars. If you're going to give us less than that, go away. We don't want less than
5 stars is good.
But listen, that's an easy way to support us, because the more higher ratings we have, the better we look to people. That's just how it is, right? Awesome draws awesome. So if you go on, you rate us, you give us those 5 stars, you give us those 4 stars, write a review, even better. But if you've only got like 10 seconds, give us a few stars, like 5. on whatever podcast platform you listen, whether it's iHeartRadio, Spotify. Welcome back, Spotify people. Oh my gosh, it's been so long. We haven't been on Spotify forever, but now we're back. So I'm so glad you're listening to us. But those are ways you can support the show. I get emails from people almost weekly that say, I wish I could support the show, but I can't. Here's the thing. That's okay. The best way you can support the show, honestly, is by listening to it. That's all I've ever wanted, is for people to listen to the show. Everything else has been a bonus. If you cannot comfortably walk into Chipotle and order guacamole or double meat, or you cannot comfortably walk into Starbucks and go, oh, do I want a latte today or a coffee? No, a latte's too much, so I guess I'll just get this tall drip coffee. If that's where you are financially, for the love of the fictitious Jesus Christ, do not give money to this show. Like, buy your coffee. But if you can do that, then we welcome. I've never met a $5 bill I didn't like. So if that's possible for you, awesome. If not, great. Now, if you're giving $5 or more to the Patreon, guess what you get? You get access to the shitty YouTube videos that I'm making now a month before anyone else. So if you're getting if you're giving $5 or more, you're going to see us wave at this camera and I get them out to you no later than Wednesday. So that's what's coming. That's where we're at. I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you so very much for listening. I love you more than you could possibly know, because I do not need to know you to love you. And we will talk to you next week.